Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Jake Matthews versus Matthew Semelsberger. This is the next fight now that Deron Wynn has slipped and fallen, and I hope he's okay. It sucks that the fight was scrapped between he and Julian Marquez. But anyway, Jake Matthews, Matthew Semelsberger. Jake Matthews is a very good fighter, and he should win this fight because he's better, I think, everywhere. Maybe not. He doesn't have every trait that Matthew Semelsberger has. Matthew Semelsberger is a little bigger and stronger, and he probably hits harder in terms of just one punch. But Jake Matthews moves better, seems to be the superior striker. I'd say he's a superior wrestler, and I'd say he's a superior submission grappler as well. He's got a lot of different advantages here. It's just a matter of overcoming that physicality from Semelsberger, which can be enough to win a fight. I mean, Semelsberger is a big, strong guy, and he's got competent striking. We've seen him throw down. He can fight hard for 15 minutes in a winning or losing effort. And he can also knock guys out in 15 seconds, as we've seen twice inside the octagon, even though it was the Jason Witt, who's pretty goddamn chinny, and Martin Sano, I think he had like 5 fights. And a record of like 3-2 when Semelsberger knocked him out. But either way, 2 knockouts in 15 seconds, no matter who it's against. That's impressive. He's got the power, and it's obvious he does when you look at him. But he's also pretty stiff. He's a guy who's got 2 inches of height and 3 inches of reach on Jake Matthews, but with how stiff he is, I just think Jake Matthews wins the jousting battle too. Jake Matthews is a lot more agile. And I see a lot of advantages for Jake Matthews in this fight. I do think he would be wise to take it to the ground, but I'm not sure how he's going to be fighting after getting that big Fialho victory. I'd be falling in love with my hands as well. I know it must have been a great moment. I'm sure he got a lot more popularity and whatever, a lot more fanfare from that victory. But Semelsberger is a big, strong guy that hits like a truck. He'd be best avoiding that if he could, and by taking him to the ground. These guys have both lost on the ground. Let me go through their records here. Jake Matthews is 18-5. His 5 losses are 1 via TKO, 3 via submission, 1 via decision. All inside the UFC, and the TKO loss was from the back mount, Kevin Lee. So he's never been knocked out or really hurt too badly that I can remember ever standing. And on the ground, he's been defeated by really good grapplers. James Vick caught him in a guillotine choke on a takedown, a counter, and he was also caught on a counter from Anthony Rocco Martin, I should say, who caught him in an anaconda in the 3rd round of a competitive fight. And Sean Brady caught him in the 3rd round with an arm triangle choke, but that was not such a competitive fight. That was the Sean Brady show. And the other loss was to Andrew Holbrook, who, was a savvy fighter that got by with a tight decision there. But still, Jake Matthews is, I do think, better everywhere. Despite his submission losses, I expect that to be his greatest advantage here. His wins, he's got 18 wins, 5 TKOs or KOs, 7 submissions, 6 decisions. Pretty well-rounded. And he's fighting Semelsberger with a record of 10-4. His 4 losses are 1 via KO, 1 via submission, 2 via decision. The 2 decisions we've seen inside the UFC against Alex Morono and Chaos Williams. And they're both fights in which Semelsberger fared pretty well. He was throwing down with Chaos Williams in a fight that was, just obviously dangerous the whole way through for both guys, really. But Semelsberger was there throwing down with them, just a step behind, I thought, pretty much the whole way, but still having a battle with one of the hardest strikers in the division. And against Morono, even though he was being beaten up and Morono, did a lot of the beating, Semelsberger gave him hell in round 3 and almost took him out with a big knee. So, and that's a fight that, I didn't watch this week, but I watched it a week and a half ago when Morono fought. And Semelsberger has been finished, like I said, 1 TKO, 1 submission, and they're both early on in his career. He was submitted with a round 3 Darce choke, and he was knocked out in round 3 earlier on in his career to guys that haven't really made it, even though they're still climbing. So that does allude to a potential cardio issue, having two finish losses in round 3. And, Semelsberger hasn't shown bad cardio at all. He outlasted A.J. Fletcher a few fights ago in pretty much a wrestling battle. We saw him against Carlton Minus. He didn't slow down in that one. And again, he took over against Alex Morono in round 3, or had his best round anyway. So I have no reason to doubt his cardio, really, even despite the 2 round 3 finish losses earlier in his career. Having said that, that's pretty much my prediction. I think Jake Matthews does get him out of there late. I'm not so sure it will be a cardio issue, but it will be just a skill set issue, I think, in one way or the other. I think Jake Matthews, the finish would have to come on the ground, I would think. On the feet, I'm sure either guy can be put away, and Jake does have really sharp hands. I think better hands than Semelsberger, and I think he would, piece him up. But I haven't seen that finish loss of his in round 3 to Jerome Featherstone, I think his name is, Matthew Semelsberger. So again, I can't speak to how it went down. I can't speak to any weakness in his chin. All I know is the guy that slugged it out with Chaos Williams for 15 minutes. But on the ground, I do think, even though I haven't seen Semelsberger exposed on the ground, I do trust that he would be if Jake Matthews was on top of him. That's just based on what I've seen. The guy that's, happy to settle on top in a sloppy battle with like A.J. Fletcher. I think a guy that's really seasoned like Jake Matthews will make him pay and tax the living shit out of his cardio. And he'll find a submission down the stretch if he's able to implement that game plan. So I'm taking Jake. I'm taking the win via submission late in the fight. I'll take it late in round 2. And those are my only bets, too. Just sprinkles on round 2 and round 3 for Jake Matthews, plus 800, plus 1,200. With the way his striking looked in his last one, and also the fact that you could get a TKO on the ground, of course, I didn't feel comfortable just picking submission or betting on submission, but I do think a submission is more likely than a TKO against Semelsberger, especially if Jake is able to get him down early and start making him work with a really skilled grappler on top of him. So that's my prediction. That's my bet. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.